So Ole Miss obviously has plenty to play for also with the Bulldogs coming to town. Who better to preview that than head baseball coach Mike Bianco on your radio right now. Coach Bianco, it's always big when State and Ole Miss get together. Certainly it's big when you have a baseball series, a 3-game series at one of the schools. But there's more added into it, isn't it? We've got 2 weeks to go, and both teams have a ton to try to get accomplished on the field this week.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Just talking to the media today before practice, and that was obviously one of the questions about the series, and is there more riding on it because of where we both are, and I think if you think back, I think we always feel that way. The games are so important. There's only 30 conference games, and it's just because of where we are in the season and how deep it is. There's always implications of postseason and host sites and those types of things. But try not to use the word that you use, desperate.
Sure.
Obviously very important, I think, for both teams.
Sure. And for your team, I know you've really been asked this ad nauseum, but it really is such a story for your team this year, and that is how well you have done against the best teams you have played in the likes of Vanderbilt and Florida and some of those, and then at other times, looking for some answers on Sundays and unable to a couple times close out a series that you maybe thought that you would have been able to. For your team right now, from a confidence standpoint, where would you describe where your kids are?
Well, one of the things, and we saw it on Sunday, is our guys have always been able to get off the mat. They've always been, after a bad loss, or just not a very good game the day before, been able to answer the bell and play well the next day. And I'm proud of them for that, and applaud them for that. It's been a year that I've never been a part of anything like this, where we've been consistently inconsistent. And as you mentioned, we played the number one schedule in the country. We've played really good against good competition. I think we're 5-4 against teams that were ranked in the top 10. But not just on Sundays. I mean, this past weekend it happened on Saturday with Brady Bramlett. We've lost midweek games against teams that we should play better against. And I wish I had the answer why. But the good thing is we've always been able to, maybe we haven't had a real long winning streak, but we haven't had a real long losing streak either. We've been able to bounce back.
When you look at what your 3-week finishing stretch is in SEC play too, Coach, you talk about you've already to this point played the number one toughest schedule in the country. RPI in great shape, and then coming into these last 3 weeks, you went at Missouri this past weekend. That has been a tough place to play for anybody in the league this year, and they pitch it so well or have throughout the year. And then back-to-back weekends against Mississippi State and Texas A&M. And sure, State is not as strong as they have been in years past, but this is Mississippi State Ole Miss, and there is a little bit of element sometimes of throw-out records, and then Texas A&M. So you've already played the toughest schedule, and I'm not so sure you didn't have one of the toughest, if not the toughest, closing stretch of 3 weeks of anybody in the league. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. But one of the things that I've said, throughout the season when people talked about our strength of schedule or who we played back-to-back, I think, a couple times we played the number one team, back-to-back. I think we went 3 out of 4 weeks where we played the number one team, in a weekend. And that's been, and in that stretch we played a Louisville team on the road that was ranked 8th in the country. And so, but really the message is, that's why our kids came here. They came to Ole Miss. They came to play the Southeastern Conference because they wanted to play against the best teams in the country, on the biggest stage. And you don't get any medals for playing the number one schedule in the country. And so even though it's good competition, it's like this every year. And the teams are always good. And I've always said, we like football, you don't play everybody in the league, but I don't know if you could pick the opponent that you would want to miss. You know, it's one of those conferences where it's so even, and anybody can beat anybody on a given day. It's just the luck of the draw. So, you know, I agree with you. You know, finishing up with Missouri, then State, then Texas A&M, you know, is pretty daunting. But it's life in the Southeastern Conference.
You've got Mike Bianco on your radio, head-to-head, Super Talk Mississippi. Coach, you were able to win a game on Sunday to salvage the series in Missouri, and that's something that your team has struggled a little bit with, years winning that third game. What did it take to make that decision finally to have Scott Weathersby come out of the bullpen and be your Sunday starter, and how long have you been thinking about that decision, and what do you think about his first time starting on a weekend for you?
Well, you know, we've thought about it for a long time, and, you know, even thought about it prior to the season. You know, Scott's obviously a huge part of our staff and what he can do for us. But he's so valuable out of the bullpen, and our fans that watch us week in and week out realize that, you know, it'd be hard to expect us to be where we are, even at 25 and 24 without Scott. I mean, he's been a big component of the bullpen and holding games and holding leads and so on. We don't win that game at Vanderbilt without Scott in the bullpen. And so, and one of the things that, you know, I made a decision early on is Scott's not a big imposing guy. You know, Scott, he's a 6-foot guy at best and 175 pounds. And to be able to pitch 100-plus pitches for 14 straight weeks, we thought he'd have a better role for us, you know, out of the bullpen. And but what led to the decision is we really didn't have another option. You know, we've tried several guys because of injuries and because of guys maybe not pitching as well. You know, we were forced to make him a starter, and boy, has he really answered the bell for us. And we still could use him in game 1 or 2 out of the bullpen if there's a game on the line and we need him to finish. But if he doesn't pitch in the first 2 games, certainly he'll finish game 3.
Mike Bianco, head baseball coach at Ole Miss, on your radio this afternoon, previewing slightly, looking ahead to Thursday night when Mississippi State goes to Swayze Field to start a 3-game series in SEC play with just 2 weekends left in SEC play before the SEC tournament in Hoover. You know, Mike, sometimes we look so much, or we have with your team, we pay so close attention to that overall record because of the, 500 thing, obviously with the postseason there looming. But it's probably a mistake, isn't it, that guys like me and maybe other media and even just fans, that we fail to look over there at that conference record and really pay attention to that. We know how strong the conference is. You touched on it, saying how close everybody is. You don't get weekends off. There's LSU and A&M at 16-7 leading the Western Division right now. But your team, that's just 5 games difference, or 5.5 games back, and still with 2 weekends to play. I mean, that's not a lot of separation in the grand scheme of things, is it, from the teams that are at the top and where you guys are right now in SEC play?
There really isn't. But, that's the way it is every year. It really is. We always say that, the conference is won and lost by a game. Somebody's not going to make the tournament because of a game or a half a game or a tiebreaker or something of that nature. And that's the beauty of the Southeastern Conference. You're right. We're in the position that we're in, not because of the SEC games, but because of, our non-conference games. It's because our non-conference record isn't, what you would expect when you look at our conference record and when you look at our RPI and our strength of schedule and all the things that you've already mentioned. And, we kind of made our bed and, now we got to sleep in it. And really the way we finish up, you were alluding to the 500 record. We have to be, 500 or better to be considered, for postseason play. It's just like a football team entering a bowl. But, we feel pretty confident if we do finish at 500 or above, the RPI will be such, the strength of schedule and the road record and all those things that the committee looked at as far as selecting at-large teams, that we'll have a good enough resume to make it. And doing so, we only have 1 non-conference game left, and so those wins will have to come as far as conference wins. And so, there's a shot that we could end up at 15-15 or 16-14 or 17-13. And everybody knows if you you finish 500 or better in the SEC, there's a chance you could host. And so, but our guys, know that it's all about Thursday night. We can't look 7 games deep, and we can't worry about other things. We got to control what we can control, and that's playing the best baseball that we can on Thursday night against Mississippi State.
And we got a couple of minutes left. Let's real quick, as you look to Mississippi State and scout them, you look across there at what they've done throughout the year. You're getting ready to prepare. You've already played them once in the Governor's Cup, some familiarity there. What do you make of Coach Cohen's team this year to this point? And it's obvious they've had some struggles. What's your scout? What do you make of them as they come into Oxford on Thursday night?
Well, I've been in this league long enough, and then I've been in this rivalry long enough to realize that they'll be ready to play, and they're going to play really hard. John's always had his guys ready to play, and much like us, they're not having the year that they expected. But, they got off to a great start, a little different in us where they were really hot and then got cold. We've just kind of been up and down really the whole year. And so, that's a team that can get hot. And I know that, they may be looking for this weekend as the weekend to really kind of, help them finish the season strong. Both teams realize that, even though it's the rivalry and there's so much riding on it, so many fans that don't even pay attention to baseball will be paying attention to this weekend. But you also realize that, there's so much more riding on this as far as postseason and whatnot. I have no doubt John will have them ready to play.
Coach, we really appreciate some time this afternoon. I know you are out and about, and you got better things to be talking and doing, and so we appreciate it. We will be watching anxiously this weekend. It ought to be a fun series in Oxford. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Yep, Mike Bianco, head baseball coach, Ole Miss.